Hello everyone and welcome back to another story time. So last time we stopped with Joseph. Israel was prosperous. They were in the land of Egypt and everything was going great. Let's fast forward 400 years. Now the tables have turned. A new Pharaoh is in charge and he doesn't know about Joseph, anything about him. All he knows is that Israel is a huge nation and now he fears that they will start their own army and overthrow him. Now what does he do? He begins to punish them. He begins to turn them into slaves. He enslaves the entire nation, and that's not all. He goes and kills every newborn baby boy. It's true. He threw all the baby boys in the Nile. But there was one boy in particular, and God had a plan for him. And when he was born, his parents saw, wow, there's something different about him. And his name was none other than Moses. Now, for God to have a plan for somebody in this time was strange. And I'm going to talk more about that later, but God hasn't spoken to anyone in 400 years. Surely it will feel like God has gone. But that's not the truth. Anyway, so Moses' parents took care of him for 3 months before they decided, okay, now we have to let him go. They put him in a basket. Put the basket in the Nile, and God protected that basket, guided that basket all the way to Pharaoh's daughter. She raised Moses as her own. Wow. But now, many years passed, Moses grew up. He was one of the Pharaoh's children. And he went out and saw the slavery that was going on, and he couldn't keep himself in because he knew he was a Hebrew. He chose those roots actually. And he saw one man, one Egyptian, hitting one of his fellow Hebrews, and he couldn't take it. And he hit him. He killed him. And so he had to run. And he ran into the wilderness, left everything he knew behind. And he met a girl. And they got married and had children, and he was there for many years. But God had a plan with him. God wasn't done with him, no. One day he was walking and he saw this light. And he went to it and he found a bush. And the bush was burning, but it wasn't burning up. It stayed together. The flame didn't devour the bush. And as he got closer, he heard a voice, Moses. And God talked to him. 400 years of a silent God suddenly speaking again. And God told him to take off his shoes. You're standing on holy ground. And he did it. And God talked to him and he said, I'm going to send you. And God told him to take your staff, throw it down, it became a snake. Put your hand in your cloak, take it out, and it was white because that was a kind of skin disease. And he put it back and it was healed. And God told him, go to my people, free them, bring them freedom. Let the Pharaoh know that I'm their God and I want them to come worship me. But Moses had a stutter and he said, but why isn't me, Lord? I'm not a good talker. But the Lord said, I will use your brother Aaron to talk for you. Use my words. You will be like God to him. I'll give the words to you. You'll give the words to him and he'll speak them. And so he went on his way. He did what God commanded and he met his brother halfway there. And his brother also had an encounter with God. And this is amazing. And many of you might know Aaron, but many of you might not. And we're going to talk all about that later. But now they're on their way to Egypt. And when they got there, Moses went to the Pharaoh and he said, Pharaoh, the Lord my God, the God of the Hebrews, wants his people to go worship him outside of Egypt. And the Pharaoh refused. He didn't want to let them go. And so this went back and forth, even in a contest between Moses and his magicians. But the magicians, they made snakes. Moses threw his staff down, became a snake, ate their snakes. And it just showed how much more powerful God is than their magic, than their power, than their gods. And this goes back and forth once again. And the Pharaoh refuses to let them go. And God decides to send the 10 plagues. And that wasn't easy for Egypt. No, it hit them hard, but it didn't hit Israel. But as God was doing this, Pharaoh attacked back by becoming more harsh towards the Israelites, doubling their labor, making it harder for them, and they resented Moses for this. But he continued to do what God called him to do, even though they were like this. And so it continued and it continued. And I want to point out 3 things to you. God didn't just free his people in the story. God didn't just attack Egypt with random attacks. No, he attacked them. He attacked their gods directly. And when I say gods, it's not gods. It's demons pretending to be gods. People who they believe were gods, because the demons, who has a bit of power, gave them stuff, but at a price. Anyway, so God made the river of the Nile turn to blood. What was the Nile River? It was their goddess of fertility, of, how can I say this, basically prosperous lands. The water lets the plants grow. The animals eat the plants, the grain, all that kind of stuff. So this was fertility, their goddess of fertility. And when they saw the river turn to blood, they thought, God has heard our goddess. Their most powerful god was Amun-Ra. Ra, the sun god. God blocked out the sun. 2 gods down, God's still there, with ease, not struggling at all. But the final one, the last plague that hit Egypt, was the death of all firstborn sons. And how is this an attack on one of their gods? Easy. Pharaoh was considered the man god. And so he decided, after that one, it's finished. Go, take your people. I want them out. So first he rejected Moses' plea to let them go worship. Now he wants them out. He wants them to leave and never come back. And so God gives the Israelites favor in the Egyptians' eyes. And they give them all kinds of gold and jewelry and earrings. And so Israel packs up their things and they go. And as they're leaving, the Pharaoh, his heart is hardened again, and he gets angry and he sends his people after them, and he goes after them. He wants to kill them, but God protects them. A cloud by day to protect them from the heat, and a fire by night to keep them warm, to show them light. And when they got to the Red Sea, or the Reed Sea, the Egyptians got up. What now? I'll tell you what. God separated them from each other. With the cloud, he came down and he protected his people once again. Moses raised up his hand and his staff over the water, and the sea split. You heard me. The Reed Sea split, and there was a pathway for the Israelites, and they walked through it on dry ground. Imagine that, walking at the bottom of the ocean, seeing the water next to you with the fish and everything in it. How powerful God has shown himself to his people. All the miracles that has happened, they witness it with their own eyes. Wow. And they got to the other side with Egypt pursuing them, because God led them through. And as they were going, the sea came back together. The pathway was closed. Now we don't know if Pharaoh died, but we know that his men died. And there have actually been proof of this, because there were chariots and bones and the wheels on the chariots found at the bottom of that sea. But now they made it to the other side. They're out of Egypt. Now they're in the wilderness. Moses and Aaron are the leaders with God, their God, once again. He's speaking, he's showing himself, and he's doing miracles. They're free from their bondage. Now they can worship God again and be his children. Will it be that simple? Will Israel keep their faith? Or will they turn again? Will they go away from God and do their own thing? And we'll talk all about that in our next story time. Have a great day, and may God bless you.